I don't know if I was really taught that, but it was assumed, this idea that we were God's chosen people. As Mennonites, we were the only ones that God cared about, and that but yet we couldn't know whether we would ever make it to heaven or not. So as a child, God or anything to do with faith was never talked about. It was assumed, but never talked about. And it was all just we do certain things and we don't do certain things, but it was never explained why. It's just, this is how it is, and that's good enough. So we came to Canada in 2001. We left because of 6 years drought in Bolivia. I remember thinking there's this tension between, growing up horse and buggy Mennonite, and now we're gonna move to a country, a different country, where I knew we weren't gonna drive horse and buggy anymore. But so I was taught, driving a car is sin. Like, that's a sin. You can't do that. And so I remember thinking like this, like, how does that work? Like, I've been taught driving a car is sin, but yet now we're going to move to a country where we're going to be doing that. So yeah, I've always believed in God and Jesus, but it was always like this God is far away, long time ago. Almost every single Sunday, there was something in the message that made me want to be a better person. I knew that I was a sinner and I could feel the weight of my sin, but I was never given the answer of how to get out of my sin. So I saw my brother change, my younger brother. He changed in the way he was thinking, and in the way he was talking, and just everything about him changed. There was something in him that I wanted, but still didn't have the power to do anything about it. Then my other brother, my older brother, and his wife, I started seeing a change in them. And same thing, we were wondering, okay, what is this change? And so then we found out they were going to a Bible study. Sarah, she convinced me to go. And we had a really good time. And that's basically how it started, how I started seeing what I was taught, well, not necessarily completely wrong, but a lot of those things that I was taught, I couldn't find in Scripture. So then when we started reading Scripture, there was this conflict with what I was taught and what I read in Scripture. And then all of a sudden I said to Sarah, I'm gonna throw everything out that I think I know about Scripture and start reading Scripture as if I don't know anything. Because this constant battle where I think I know everything, but when I read Scripture, it turns out I know nothing. Like, it's so different from what I believe. And so with that, I was able to get an understanding of who Jesus is, rather than what my perception was of him from growing up. When I decided to put everything in the back burner that I thought I knew, Jesus became very close. He was no longer long time ago far away. It's one thing to know about Christ, but then another thing to really believe him, what he said about himself.
And in the Gospels, Jesus is continually doing things that the Jewish leaders considered to be wrong. And I'm afraid I had been falling into the same way of thinking as those religious leaders did in Jesus' time, by living my life by preconceived ideas of who Jesus is and what he cares about. But then reading the scriptures and finding out that Jesus doesn't necessarily care about whether or not I drive horse and buggy or I dressed a certain way. Jesus is saying something to the effect of, if we stay in his word and then we really are his disciples, then we will know the truth and the truth will set us free. And so that was just huge for me as I was starting to understand who Jesus is and understanding that Jesus is not concerned about me following a list of man-made rules. Instead, he wants me to walk in holiness and he wants my worship and my heart.